Good afternoon, and welcome to everyone joining us for today's InterAction Mobility 1.3 Reaching the Point of Contacts webinar with Mike Baldwin, a Senior Product Manager for the InterAction team. All of our attendees will be in listen-only mode for the duration of our presentation. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them through the questions pane located on your webinar control panel. And now at this time, Mike, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you very much, Liz, and thank you everybody for taking the time this afternoon to join us for this discussion of InterAction Mobility. There are a couple things that I want to do today. I realize that the audience on the webinar today may be a little bit of a mix of those of you who are already mobility customers and users, those of you who are looking at it for the first time, and maybe some of you in between. So I want to not make too many assumptions. We'll cover a little bit about the basics of what InterAction Mobility is, but then I want to spend most of the time talking about the 1.3 release, which is our most recent release, and then we'll go into a brief product demo, and then I believe that Liz will mention this again, but please feel free to submit questions via the navigation pane in the GoToWebinar viewer. There's a way to submit questions in, and if you do that, then I'll make sure that we follow up with you with the questions afterwards directly. So we'll make sure we can capture everybody's feedback and any kind of inquiries you have. So with that said, we'll go ahead and get started. As Liz mentioned, my name is Mike Baldwin. I am one of the product managers here on the InterAction team. I work with a couple of different elements of the InterAction solution across the board, but specifically with the mobility piece. So just to talk a little bit about mobility at the highest level from a value perspective, we like to look at it in two primary ways. One is the value that it brings for the end users, the fee earners within your organization, whether those are attorneys or consultants or accountants or other types of professionals, really anybody who is charged with any level of business development responsibility for your firm. So the value that mobility can bring to them, and then the other side is really the firm. So those of you that have chosen InterAction or are currently working directly with InterAction at a firm level or in a support function to those that are supporting the InterAction implementation within your firm, the value that it can bring for you as well. So just to touch quickly on these, and I know that you may or may not have seen these slides before, if you've ever talked to anybody within the InterAction organization, but for end users, mobility does provide a new and direct way for InterAction data to suddenly become accessible by those end users, by those fee earners. So finding contacts, identifying relationships, the nose relationships or the IQ score if your firm happens to be using that, establishing connectivity, right? So not just being able to view a contact record, but because it's a smartphone or a mobile enhanced device, you can simply touch a button and place a phone call or send a text or send an email directly from the mobility app with a single step. Preparing for meetings, managing logistics. If you know you're going to be traveling, you know you need some information quickly, not just the contact information, but the additional context, the notes. You know, when were they last called? What is this person? What are their particular interests? Names of colleagues or coworkers or family members. Any of that kind of extra information to give you just a little bit of an edge during your conversation, during your interaction with that client or prospect. It can make all the difference. Managing extra time, so you've got space between meetings, you're trying to plan travel, how to get from A to B, what contacts or clients or prospects happen to be nearby. You're going to be able to do that more effectively. Mobility will show you specifically what other contacts that you have in your My Contacts list within a given radius, and then if you select to map it or get directions, it can actually plot the route right out for you between your contacts. So you can do that either in advance or you can do it on the fly as you're traveling. and ultimately building the relationship. So getting the information that's important at the right point in time to the right people in a way that's going to be meaningful for them to further develop business development initiatives. So lots of good things for the end users, lots of value that mobility can really extract from the interaction data that you've already got captured within your database. It's really just making it accessible, making it exposed, and presenting it to users in a way that they're going to be able to interact with it that makes sense to them, in a way that they're used to behaving with the devices that they're already comfortable with. Now, at the firm level, really everything we just talked about fits into this first bullet here, where you're empowering your end users. It's not just so much about requiring them to enter data or log activities or add new contacts or what have you, but you're really empowering them to get the data out in a way that is going to generate value for them. At the same time, you are going to increase their satisfaction levels with CRM in general, with InterAction specifically, with the efforts that the firm is doing to create a CRM type of environment for the firm. When they see that they can get value out of it, when they see that they can use that information to directly further their business development efforts, then their opinion will change, and then those around them too will also witness the success and replicate those efforts. So at the same time, it also reduces the overhead and increases efficiency at the firm level. So, if you think about a simple request for, give me the whatever information on such and such contact, today it could take 2, 3, 4, maybe more steps for that to happen, meaning, you've got to make the request, it's got to go to somebody, that person's got to get it, they've got to perform the action and send the data back. We're putting the power to do that right in the end user's hands. So they want to look something up, they can look it up and not only remove the dependency upon all the other I'll call points of failure, right? Potential points of failure, but also they're getting it immediately. It's just happening as they need it right at that point in time. So as fee earners start to see success with this and they start to improve the value that they're deriving from the interaction data, that will not go without notice, and we predict certainly within the firm that other fee earners see those who are having success, they're going to follow suit. So logically, solution adoption within the firm will also increase, and then overall, this really all just supports the return on your interaction investment, what I like to call the ROI, the return on interaction. This is an investment that your firm has already made. This is data that your firm already has within InterAction, and it's really all just about helping more people within your firm get more value out of it. So we believe that mobility is an important step on that journey. And with that said, let's talk about, I think, what we really wanted to talk about is this most current release, InterAction Mobility 1.3. And so I'll say don't get hung up on the version number. We really just talk about the version number to help differentiate it from other releases. We have done a number of releases fairly quickly this year so far. We have, this is actually our 4th release since we first came to market in September of last year with the Mobility 1.0. So the fourth iteration, if you will, of mobility for InterAction. And we do plan to continue with a fairly consistent and predictable release cadence for mobility going forward. We released 2 weeks ago on June 13th, so 2 weeks ago today, and we deployed globally, and what I'm calling here automatically, but what really means a hands-off upgrade for our current users. So both at the firm level and at the end user level, there were no requirements for upgrading any server or any other software or for on the devices, the smartphones and the tablets themselves. No additional downloads or updates there either. This is all automatic in the cloud for this release. And the primary theme for this release was really extending the add and edit data capabilities that we put in there with the last release for the first time for our end users. The first couple releases of mobility were primarily view only. They were data extraction. But then with 1.2, we did add the ability for users to add notes or edit notes, and so gave them the power to put data back into InterAction directly from the mobile device. So we're extending that with Mobility 1.3. The key features here are the ability to add contacts, so new contacts, or to edit existing contacts within InterAction. So that's now possible with mobility. We've also added the ability to use lists within mobility. So marketing lists and working lists specifically can now be viewed, and the contacts that they contain. And then lastly, primary enhancement for this, which is more of arguably an infrastructure enhancement, but I think it's definitely worth talking about, is the addition of a new hosting location for mobility in the Asia-Pacific region. So mobility is a web application. It's a hosted website-driven application, if you will, and so the hosting locations are important. When we first launched, we hosted solely out of the United States. Then we added a second location in Europe late last year, and then now we've rounded out the global coverage with a third location in the Asia Pacific region. So what that means is a couple things. Now we are truly covering the globe, if you will, but also from an end user experience point of view, it is an automated routing. I'll call intelligent routing that we use for determining which location serves which user, and it is not something that the end user needs to worry about. It's not something that the firm needs to understand at all. It is all automated, and it is done intelligently on the fly, so that if a user in say in New York is a regular mobility user, and then they travel to Europe, then they travel to Singapore, they travel to Africa, wherever they happen to be, the service will determine which hosting location will provide the fastest connectivity for them at that point in time, and will route them accordingly. So it's not something they need to worry about additional logins or anything like that. It's just it all happens behind the scenes, and they will be guaranteed to be routed on the optimal path for that connection at that point in time that they are using the application. So those are the three big things. I want to get in and show you a little bit what this looks like in static view, and then we'll jump into the live demo. So first, adding a new contact record. You'll see that this is possible within a couple different places within the application, both the Search Contacts view as well as the My Contacts view. And in both cases, there will be a new icon that appears next to the search field on either of those areas. Clicking that plus icon here will launch a small form, a short form. Small is probably relative, right? But it is a form for creating the new contact. It contains a number of fields. It is not an exhaustive new contact form. It does not contain every single field for every firm, for every user. It is a static field, so everyone will get the static form. Everyone will get the same form here with the same fields, and it's exactly what you see here. First name goes by, last name, company name, direct phone, mobile phone, email, and notes. And then you will have the ability to add a date and name stamp for when you enter notes as well, and I'll show you that when we do this live. But that's the form. So when you're creating a new form or a new contact, you would just enter whatever data you would like to enter. The only field that's required here is the last name field, and then you hit save, and that will save that new contact record to your My Contacts list. And I want to make the point that this feature does interact with My Contacts, and so when you create a new contact or if you're editing a contact, it is doing that within the context of My Contacts, the My Contacts list within InterAction. Now, if the user wants to share a contact with the firm, they will have the option to do that, but by default, any activity that they take, any action that they take with the contact record is at the My Contacts level, not the firm level. Whatever firm rules are set up for syncing data between My Contacts and the firm database will be adhered to. This feature does not change any of those rules. It does not add new rules. It does not bypass any of those rules. It will simply fit within the existing rules that are set up for your firm. So now once a new contact record is created, the end user can go in and select this icon you see with the little pencil to edit the data. And in this case, where you can see on the screenshot, this record has not been shared with the company yet, so I've got this large red button that says Share with Company if I wanted to do that. But if I don't, it's the same process either way. The contact's created, I can edit it, and if I edit it by selecting that button, I will get that same form again. It will reopen. All of the fields that I had entered data into will be populated, so I can change or delete or make whatever adjustments I'd like. The only difference with the form now is that it will have the option for me to delete the contact at the bottom of the form, where obviously that would not be there for a brand new contact. But that's the only difference. It's the same process. So I can either save or cancel or whatever I'd like to do. Now, moving on to the lists, I can view list associations for any person contact. And the way I do that is to go to that person's snapshot. I can go to their business card, their contact record, open that up within InterAction, and at the bottom I will see two new drop-downs, one for marketing lists and one for working lists. And they're both collapsed by default, but if I clicked on either one of them, that would open the list of lists, if you will. And so if you look at this middle view, the marketing list view has expanded. It's showing all of the lists of the marketing list type that this person happens to be on. And then if I wanted to take it to the next level and click on any of those lists, I could then see all of the other contacts that are on that given list. I don't need to do that, certainly. That's just sort of the next step in the process. If I wanted to click on any of those contact names, that would open the business card snapshot for those contacts, and then I could kind of just continue the cycle, see what lists they're on, or do anything else within the mobility screen that I needed to do for those contacts. There is a filtering capability as well, which I'll show you in the live demo, recognizing that some of these lists can end up being extremely long, and if you want to find the right contact, we've added a filtering capability so you can do that quickly. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the demo. With that, you should see my browser here. I'm actually doing this in Chrome, and I'm doing that for a couple reasons. One, to demonstrate that this is it is sort of a device or browser agnostic as much as we can make it for mobile purposes. And said differently, because again, this is a hosted application. It's not device specific, so it's not like an iPhone app versus an Android app. It is a hosted web application, so it is usable on desktops and laptops as well. Really, any kind of device that has a browser. So you can see here that I can also adjust the screen resolution or the constraints of the application. So if I was on a tablet, I would get a view maybe more like this. Depending on my device, I may have a view more like this or a view more like this. It really just depends on the end user's device. But in this case, I'm using Chrome on my own laptop to show this. And let's look at the Add Contact feature first. So I'm going to go into the Search Contacts view, and it is going to bring up the normal view, but you'll see now I've got this plus sign at the end of the search field. And if I select that, it will bring up the field for adding a new contact. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and add myself as a new contact. You can see that when I enter my first name, it automatically populates the goes by field. But if I wanted to change that to something else, I could say Michael. It's usually the other way around with me, actually, but I could enter whatever I wanted there. And then the required field is last name, as I said. And I could enter more information if I'd like, or less. I'll go ahead and put in a phone number that is meaningless. Maybe another one just to round it out. And I'll just go ahead and save at this time. And you'll see that it will save the record and take me to the business card snapshot right away. I've got my name, I've got my company, I've got whatever other information I added there. This is following the rules set up by my firm already. So I've got the mobile numbers added are restricted to me. So you can see the little padlock icon shows up. So even if I share with firm, then that number stays private. And that's just that's pre-configured. That has nothing to do with mobility specifically. That adheres to the InterAction rules that already exist. If I want to edit this record, I go ahead and select the edit icon, and you can see I get the field right back up. And now maybe I want to add an email address. I'll go ahead and put in my email address, which you all are more than welcome to use if you'd like to send me any feedback or questions. And then maybe I want to add a date and name stamp. So I'm going to go ahead. By the way, I'm logged in as fictional character Ed Roberts. So it's going to go ahead and put in today's date and Ed Roberts, and then I could say I just met Mike at a coffee shop. You know, follow up in 2 weeks, or whatever I'd like to do there. I have the option to delete the contact, but I'm going to go ahead and save it, and that will update the contact record and the notes associated with that contact record with the new information. You can also see down here at the bottom I've got marketing lists and working lists. That's where these will appear on any given person contact record within mobility. But since I just created this contact record, these are both going to be blank because I'm not associated with any lists yet, but I can be now. So the contact that I'm going to use for this, if you've ever sat in on a demo or training with InterAction at all, you may have heard of Jane Tarnoff. She's our fictional character here for most of our trainings and demos. I know that she has some list data, so I'm going to jump over to hers. And by the way, this is worth pointing out. This was already possible with InterAction, but if you're in mobility and you see client types across, we do colorize based on the primary client type, but we'll list additional client types across the top. If you click on that, it's going to show you all the client types for that contact. That's in the product already, but it was pointed out to me that not a whole lot of people were aware of that, so I'm just pointing that out. Then you go back to Jane's contact record, and I'm going to go down to her list. She's got marketing lists and working lists, and if I want to see what marketing list Jane is on, then I'll just open that, and it gives me a list of all the lists that she's on. The primary use case that we were really going after with this is within the context of a contact. So really, if I know Jane, and it's important to me to know that she is on the list for the annual meeting, for example, that I can go to Jane's contact record and check that she's there, as opposed to going to a list and seeing all who's on it, which you can do, but really what we tried to do was the contact-specific use case as the primary for this. So that's why that's there in this manner. So I can see she's on a number of different lists, and I'll check and see if so who else is on this webinar seminar list. Well, I can see that there are 6 other people on here, and if I wanted to click on any one of these, I could, and I could go to their contact record. But now I'm going to check. I saw that there were a couple surveys on this list as well, so I want to look at those and see who's on those. I go to Client Satisfaction Survey. and see, you can see that I've got a longer list of people here now. So we've added this filter tool. So for lists that are longer, that would potentially scroll off the screen of a smartphone, which would be most lists. But I can add any kind of filtering or additional data here. So really, just by entering a single letter, in this case, I'll just type the letter B, and instantly it filters it down to only those contact records that have the letter B in there. So if I were to type, just a couple letters to start the start of somebody's last name, I could find them almost instantly, regardless of how long the list happens to be. So that's a nice usability feature from a filtering perspective. And the working lists, again, operate in an identical fashion. Clearly, the type of lists is different. Working lists are very different from marketing lists, and they're used in a different way. But the way that a user would interact with them within mobility is going to be identical. So that is really it for adding or editing contacts, and as well for the lists. You can see here that although Jane was a pre-existing contact, I still have the ability to edit that record. But again, I want to make the point that any edits that I make to Jane's record or any actions that I take against her are going to apply only to my contacts version of the record initially. And if I do have that contact record shared with the firm, then it's going to follow whatever DCM or other syncing rules already apply for that contact record. So that's it for the demo. I do want to point out a couple other resources that we do have, make sure that everyone's aware of that. One is the InterAction Support Center. So whether you are a current mobility client or just an InterAction client, you do have access to the InterAction support site, which includes a page specific to mobility, and that includes lots of great information, new information about any new releases that come out. We will post up there the actual software that's required for mobility, the API server, as well as the mobility connector service. The latest and greatest versions of those are always available there. Instructions on how to configure and set that up, as well as all of the published documentation for administrators, for users. The quick reference guide, which is a great one-page, sort of two sides of one page, a very distributable PDF that you can send out to your end users on how to get up and running on mobility the very first time. And then also some technical architectural information is there. Also posted there is a link to the training that exists on LexisNexis University. You can, of course, go to LexisNexis University directly via this link. It's just lexisnexis.com/university. Search for InterAction Mobility, and you'll see the training that's there. It's a 1-hour on-demand, just view at your own leisure kind of webinar training, or not webinar, but interactive training. And that does contain information about the new release as well. So you could feel free to send that out to your end users, and they could go through that training on their own time whenever it's convenient. And then, of course, please don't hesitate to talk to your account manager or anyone on our support team. Everyone's very well versed with mobility and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have. And I do have a little commercial here down at the bottom for my own selfish purposes, if you will. Like I said up front, we plan to continue with predictable and fairly regular mobility releases as much as we can. We do plan on having another mobility release in 2013. The exact timing for that is to be determined at this point, but we should be able to release more information about that over the next few months. But if you're at all interested in staying connected with us, being involved really in maybe some feedback loops, some concept testing, or just really exploration as to the specific requirements of your firm, please don't hesitate to give me a shout here at my email address. It's just mike.baldwin@lexisnexis.com. I would love to hear from you. I would love to speak with you about the needs of your firm for mobility, or if you're already using it in ways that you're seeing success with mobility. Would be thrilled to connect with you about any of that.